Rob.
Hello everyone and welcome to Rob's Rogues, and today we're taking a look at Mattel's DC Comics Multiverse. It is, says Wally West, Wally West, Wally West, you Wesky West, Wally West, aka The Flash. So I'm kind of surprised they didn't put The Flash up here, but hey, it is what it is. This is a figure I have been waiting for. There are 4 figures in this wave that I was really excited about. Of course, I just reviewed Nightwing, so he's here off to the side. I just got him in today, so the day that I reviewed Nightwing, I told my wife, you know what? I need to order Wally West Flash. Already ordered him. And then I'm also planning on picking up Starfire and Beast Boy. And that will conclude the figures that I'm going to pick up for this wave. I really have no need or desire to complete it. John Stewart would have been cool. If I were to see John Stewart in stores, would I pick him up? Yeah, probably. But I'm not going to go out of my way like I am going to go for the 4 figures here in this 6-figure wave. So speaking of the wave, we've got Beast Boy, Starfire, and of course we're looking at Wally West the Flash, John Stewart Green Lantern, Nightwing that I've already reviewed, and the CW Black Lightning. The CW figures are fine. I would have, at this point, I really wish that Mattel just would have stayed all comic book accurate figures, but hey, people that are picking up the CW action figures, I'm sure that they're going to like to pick him up. I think I have Martian Manhunter and Supergirl just because of the Collect and Connect that those were a part of that I wanted to complete that. We can read the write-up here for Wally. I will read it to you. It says, DC Rebirth Wally West. Wally West has reestablished his connection with the Speed Force, the extra-dimensional energy powers that all powers try that again. The extra dimensional energy that powers all speedsters. Wow, that was really hard to read. So we got some art by Brett Booth right here. Same pretty much all the way around. But let's get this guy out of package, and I cannot wait to... I really wanted to go back and get the DC Signatures line, the Wally West Flash, but I'm kind of glad I never did because I really love this Wally West redesign Flash costume for Rebirth. I think it fits who he was with his original Flash, or with his original Kid Flash costume, but updates it into a Flash suit. So we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. All right, here is Wally West Flash from Rebirth out of package, and I really do like this figure. Now, I've seen a couple other reviews while I was waiting for Wally to arrive to me, and I think most of the reviews or complaints, if I'm doing air quotes here, are usually just done in the paint apps. And aside from my Nightwing figure that we've already looked at, I think for the most part that Wally, let me get the camera, it's viewing here, there we go, I think his paint for the most part is done really, really well. And I love, and some people, I think I saw one review that said, wow, they can't even get the colors right from the bright red, and then the arms are wrong. This is actually his color scheme. For people that don't know, his color fades from this almost brighter or scarlet red down to a brown red, and then back to the scarlet. That is his correct look in Rebirth, his costume design. And what I think is so cool that it incorporates his Kid Flash costume while also incorporating his Flash costume into a new Rebirth costume. So I think this is a wonderful design that you can clearly look at it and tell that this is Wally West. And again, just from the head sculpt, well, the head sculpt, but his cowl and the way his hair always comes out on the top of his head. I think it's done really well. One of the other complaints that I've seen is that his head is probably a little bit too big for his body, but I don't think it's too off-putting. I think like once somebody points it out, you can kind of look at it and go, yeah, maybe it is. The ear pieces or wing pieces, you You can kind of tell this one in the back is drooping down just a little bit. It's a really soft plastic, unlike the Young Justice Wally West that I'm going to bring up here in a little bit, where this piece is a little bit more stiffer, which could have a potential to breaking, but I think with a little bit of TLC, I can get this to, let me raise this up a little bit, get it to stand up a little bit more even. I think it's just from being sat in the package, but it's not it's not like it's a hard, rigid plastic that they put it on wrong. I think it's due to the nature of the soft plastic. But I don't have any overpaint, overspray. I think all of the panel lines and gold or silver lightning line up really well on the figure, even down to the boots. So I think my Nightwing that I've got right here had one little spot of blue missing from a scuff mark, but his paint doesn't have any other blemishes in it. And I think this is just due to these type of figures, and even DC collectibles for that matter. But his emblem looks really, really nice. It would have been cool if these were, sculpted into the figure, but there are no new sculpting pieces on this figure, obviously, aside from the head. So this is just a straight body buck repaint, no new tooling or anything involved in it, and some people would cry foul about it. That's really not bothering me, as we are down to the very end of Mattel's licensing for these multiverse figures. And I think they do fit in well with some DC Universe classics. Yes, some of the sizes are going to be off a little bit, but at the end of the day, this is just me. I'd rather have a good representation of the character, and if some are a little bit bigger than the others, I would rather have a figure than no figure. So let's get a closer look at Wally's face here. And I think the face sculpt is done very well. I mean, coming from some early days of Mattel having wonky eyes, I think both eyes look very, very good on the figure, and you can actually see that there's some green there. It's a basically sculpted face. You can definitely tell there's some definition in the lips there. His cheekbones, his nose is done very well. The chin strap on the figure, again, you can see the little bent earpiece here, but again, I think a little TLC, like I said. His hair is sculpted very, very well, which is something that you want to see in the Wally West figure, just that vibrant, flowing red hair. Going down through, like I said, the emblem is done very well. The paint lines, everything matches up. Again, when you start twisting the figure, obviously they won't match up, but in the static form, everything lines up really well. I don't have any spots where things don't line up, all the way around to the wrist on both spots. I saw Brad, the action figure toy geek, I think I'm probably getting his name wrong there. He had spots where his lightning didn't match up. So I understand when you get a figure that mine seems to be pretty darn near perfect. Again, I moved that leg a little bit there, but see, that matches up when you get it lined up. So I can understand how he's disappointed in a couple of his figures because his didn't line up, and so that may tarnish his review a little bit on his, because I get it, we're spending money on these things. So I'm not saying that, he's saying the figure's bad. It's to quote Michael Bailey, it's a little bit of now I'm missing the quote. It's a zero-sum game. To taste is something that's hard. Something I may personally like or love may not be something that you personally like or love. So if I say the figure is great and you happen to get it and say the figure's horse crap, it's like with every review, take it with a grain of salt to the person that's reviewing it. I happen to really like these figures so far, and hopefully you will too. So let's take a look at the articulation on these figures. on these figures, on Wally. The head does look left to right. He can look down slightly. Again, like I had mentioned with Superman way back when, and even Nightwing, especially on your running figures and your flying figures, it would have been great to have some articulation to get them to look up. Because once you start bending the figures over, you'd want to get his head up. If you're putting him in a running pose, his head's going to be in a down position. So that's, again, we may be nitpicking at something where Mattel could be saying, hey, just be thankful we're producing these figures at all. But at the end of the day, we still want them to be able to move and do things with them. So I'm not going to scream up and down, this is a horrible figure, because there's a point of articulation that's not there. Should it be there? Yes. But at the same time, I'm still really excited to have this figure. Classic DC Universe Classics, arm sockets there, single swivel at the bicep, single bent elbow, which again, some figures have doubles. It's hit or miss with some of these, but most of them so far have only been having single hinged elbows. There is a wrist swivel and hinge. Again, you have, I didn't show this right off, but you have two hands, a running hand, or in Superman's hand, it'd be a flight hand. Brad had said, like, why would you give an open hand to Wally? Shouldn't it be just like a closed fist? I think it's nice when you can have any figure that's not running or flying or whatever, to have an open hand, at least to hold something. Somebody could say, well, Nightwing, excuse me, Wally, Flash doesn't have to hold anything. Well, what if you're setting up some ACBA type stuff and you actually want to give Wally one of Nightwing's Scream Sticks and actually hand it off like they're, you know, passing the baton back and forth, or whatever it might be, or maybe holding on to something like a railing. So I like it when they have hands like this. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to have him with the hands flat. It looks kind of weird to, you know, have him I could have him salute if you wanted to, like I've done with my Shazam figure. So it's great if I'm going to pose him to run. I love having those extra hands. That's really cool. But I'm probably going to keep him with these hands for now, when he's just standing on my shelf. But back to articulation. Just the typical ab crunch, little bit more bending forward, not so much back. There is a waist swivel, their new ball peg, jointed legs. That's, some of them have them, some of them don't. Upper thigh swivel, double bend knee, which is really cool. Ankle hinge and rocker. So you can get him in a pretty decent running pose here. I've got a base. He's slowly I had his foot up off the ground just a little bit more there initially, trying to give the weight displacement right with the base that I have here. So you can get him in a pretty solid running pose if you choose to do so. I would like his head up a little bit more, but I still think it works very, very well here if I've got him running around the track here. So let's take a look at some comparisons for some other Flash figures. All right, this is the only other Wally West I have in my collection currently at the moment. I should say currently at the moment, like I'm going to pick up another one. I'm probably not going to. This is the Young Justice Wally West. Now, I would love to be able to have the original DC Universe Classics Wally West to see what his size is. I think the Young Justice figures were a little bit smaller as far as the teens go. I might be wrong in saying that this Wally West was the correct size. So I was glad to at least have one. I love the Young Justice version. I came into DC Universe Classics right around wave 16. I think that was the Bane wave. So that Wally West was a little bit farther back. But as far as aesthetically, as far as the costume, you could definitely tell, you know, with the open part of the cowl. These are the earpieces that I was talking about, that they can come off. And this was, I had them off camera, they could come off and you could put the goggle version of Wally on, which that would have been really cool to have, but I got him loose off of eBay, so I didn't get all the other bits and pieces for him. So over sizes, I think he probably could be a little bit taller, but again, this could be very early in his his appearance as Kid Flash and looks like a kid here as opposed to the more grown adult version of Wally West. So let's bring up another figure to compare him with. Alright, so here is the New 52 / now Rebirth version of Flash. Now when he came out, obviously he was the New 52. This is Barry Allen here. Got him leaning, his head's tilted just a little bit here. So like we all know from the current waves of figures that these figures are a touch taller than some of their predecessors, but it's not so much. You could almost argue that's just because of the hair on top of his head seems to make him a little bit taller, but it's not so bad that you can't stand the two side by side. And I'm trying to make Barry stand a little bit more here. There's problems with his feet, but you get what I'm saying here. So let me bring up the other DC Universe Classics Flash, and we'll see how those two work if you don't happen to have the New 52 / Rebirth version of the Flash. And here he is. For me, I'm not sure exactly what wave he was from, but I picked him up as a part of an all-star wave way after the fact of when this figure had originally come out. He was sitting on a Toys R Us shelf, and I was really shocked to see him, and it was probably a couple years after that figure was out. So again, I think both of the Flashes that I brought up were just right around the same size. So rather than doing a computer edit here are both Barrys next to Wally West, Kid Flash. Again, I got his knees bent a little funny there. So these two Flashes are approximately the same height. So Wally may be a touch taller, but as you can tell here just from the camera's point of view, it's not so bad that you couldn't have him stand with either one of these. But as far as my shelf goes, I think what I'm probably going to do is going to have these two stand together and then have these two be really close. And I'll bring up one more figure here, and here is Impulse from the DC Universe, DC Collectibles line here from Young Justice, so I could have all of my Flashes together. If I wanted to in some various form or another. And I'm bringing a Superman up here to do nothing else other than I like seeing the two together. And if you've been reading Rebirth comics, Wally and Superman here are the only two that originally remember the beginning of Rebirth of what their universe used to be like from before. So as Wally was helping everybody else remember, he found Superman, and the two had realized from the universe that they were originally from. So I wanted to bring him up for there, and I'll do one more here. And here's Nightwing, the other figure from the line that I have so far at this time. Now, these two figures I purchased from PaulMartStore.com, and they run about $24.99 a piece, and some people are like, oh my gosh, you can get them cheaper somewhere else. Now, as more people are starting to find out that Paul Mart has these figures, what ends up happening there, I don't know if I agree with this or not, but the price starts to go up a little bit depending on the quantities that are left. I saw that Starfire was up to $34 already on his store. So I had made mention in, I believe, Nightwing's video that there are two more figures from this wave that I want, and that is Starfire and Beast Boy. And I think that will complete all the figures that I really want. So I didn't actually get them from Paul Mart. Now I could have from Beast Boy, he was still $24.99, but I saw Entertainment Earth is taking pre-orders, so I went over there, and those are $19.99 each. So I end up putting a pre-order in there, and those will eventually come, which ironically, at these two figures both being $24.99, it almost ends up being $52, $53 if I bought them both at the same time. Guess what the price of Entertainment Earth from two figures is once you figure in shipping? That is about $52, $53. So you're splitting hairs here going, because Paul Mart says they give free shipping to U.S. Residents, which that puts it at the $52, $53 mark, you know, depending on the cents for, you know, tax and all of that. So if you didn't get it at Paul Mart, then you feel like you're saving money over at Entertainment Earth. You're really not. You're paying for the shipping that Paul Mart is actually putting into the cost of the figures. So there you go. There's that math for you. Final thoughts here on the figure. I really like him. I'm going to say he's going to be darn near, I want to say a 10. Why the hell not? I don't really rate my figures, but just from, I've always wanted to have a Wally West. I'm old enough to know that Barry Allen was the Flash, and I'm also old enough, young enough to not remember or realize that Barry Allen had died. I woke up one morning and all of a sudden Wally West was the Flash. So for the longest time in my comic book collecting, Wally West was the Flash and Barry Allen died in this Crisis story that I really never read. And I didn't, not that I didn't care about it, it was just like, oh, Wally was my Flash. So to see Wally get lost during the New 52 and then eventually come back and be the catalyst and be the bright spot in the Rebirth #1 story that Jeff Johns wrote was so good, so well done. And then having read Heroes in Crisis and see what Tom King has done to the Wally West character just broke my heart all over again. And now knowing that Scott Lobdell is going to be writing a Wally West comic book, which is good on the one hand, that at least they're trying to find some way to redeem Wally West, but it's at the hands of Scott Lobdell. I don't want to get into it right now, but I had to get this figure. I just have such a deep affinity for the Wally West figure. He's going to be or Wally West character. He's going to be standing proud with my Rebirth heroes on my shelves, and will be a upfront predominant character. And this is coming from a big Robin and Batman fan. So today we've been taking a look at the Wally West Flash Rebirth from Mattel's DC Universe Classics line. I have 2 more figures left to review from this line before we move on to the final wave of figures from Mattel, so that's going to be something really cool and special, and I have purchased that whole entire wave. I'm just waiting for it to be released. So until the next video, this is Rob for Rob's Rogues signing off, saying we will see you guys next time.